at the same time, you focus a lot on privacy issues related to our tech, which we absolutely love our tech, right? We're madly in love with our tech. We will forego so much of our own privacy and security because we love the convenience and ease of tech. Let me start with that. Why are you sounding the alarm on things like smartphones and connected accounts, things of that nature? Why do you see issues with those?
It's a little bit different when you know how things work. I've been in the tech field for so many decades that when you actually think about what could you do with this technology. So what I do often is I think about all the possibilities, and lo and behold, that possibility is often done. So, and I'm thinking like the bad guy here. As a cybersecurity person, I'm thinking, how can I misuse this information? How can I misuse the data? And without any doubt, that is exactly what is happening. And that's why I can have to sound the alarm, because many of this is not detected.
You can find, by the way, I wanted to mention Brax.me is his website. You can also find him on the YouTube channel, which is what I subscribe to. Let me ask you, Rob Braxman, what do they do with this information that they collect from us? What exactly do they collect, and what are they doing with it?
Well, initially, I mean, you got to go historically here. So at the beginning, the intent was to raise their stock prices by finding a way to monetize your data. So as you can remember from 2007 or so, Facebook went public, and one of the things they started doing was selling your data. Google, of course, was doing that with advertising. So the initial goal was advertising. Then they got powerful. And that's the thing about, these big companies. They get powerful and their objectives change. And so it's moved from the phase of just collecting the data to actually using the data, and the use of a data in what I would refer to as a mercenary kind of way, where they're using it for whatever purpose they want. There are actually several companies involved with this, and you are familiar, of course, and most people are familiar with the use of data by Google for advertising, Facebook for advertising, in theory. And what we don't know about are the other companies like Palantir. Palantir is run by Peter Thiel. So some of them are actually on different sides of the political spectrum, even. And Palantir is an example of a company that sells the data to government, to financial institutions, basically any large corporation, and they use it to control. They use it to detect movements in the stock market. They use it to detect trends. They use it to kind of get an idea of thoughts. And the idea of that, of course, as you mentioned, you watched my video on propaganda, is that can be used then to change people's hearts and minds. And that is the scary part of this, because if you don't know that, then you'd have no idea that it's influencing even the vote, how people vote, how people think. It influences what even is considered to be the up and coming issue of the day. It's called social media amplification, where they can choose certain topics to be up there, and you see that in the political landscape, where people are focused on certain topics but not others. And you say, well, why is that? Why is it so sudden that certain topics rise up to a level that it wasn't there before?
Yes.
And that is called amplification.
I always feel manipulated when I'm online. I always feel like they're manipulating me online all the time, and it's hard to. It's come to the point now we have to be so discerning over everything now, because we're not sure what's true and what's not true, what's just being amplified for a reason and what is being hidden for a reason. And, I'll give you a case point. So in 2014, I started a YouTube channel myself on the side, and I was growing a really good audience, and it was just going very, very well. In 2017, I remember it was the first quarter of 2017, both YouTube and Facebook announced that they were making changes to their algorithm, and this changed some things. It was very easy to grow audiences on YouTube before this moment. And after this moment, one of the changes that happened on YouTube side was they began to automatically create transcripts of every video. And they would say, hey, now we know what's in your video, and now we can really make sure that people who want that content can find that content. But the flip side of that same coin was now they knew what's in your video. And if they don't want people to see that content, they won't. And we saw that was just one of many changes that I felt was a direct introduction to censorship on this platform in a way that hadn't been there previously. And ever since, it's been a lot harder to reach the audience.
Well, when you upload a video to YouTube, it does this AI check. And the AI is actually taking every frame of the video. So not just, not just kind of a general thing. It actually looks at every frame to look at the content of every frame. For example, if a frame shows, in your case, do you have any religious artifact or anything on the frame, or a gun, or or a Coke bottle? I mean, whatever. The AI detects that, and then it actually understands the context. It looks at the person and looks at how the expression is. If you're angry, if you're not angry, and then of course it transcribes, and on all that it passes it through an algorithm to then check to see what's actually in the video, what the intent is. And this is very clear. You even in my videos, I noticed that on certain topics, like that recent video I did, which nobody watched, and nobody watched it because obviously it was not shared to my viewers, because it says impressions. The impressions is when YouTube shares your video to your audience, and you have the click rate, the click-through rate, CTR. And you can see there that the click rate is good. So which means when it's displayed to people, that people click it. But the impression count is what YouTube uses to say that we showed you in the notification screen, or in the home screen, or in the up next. And in my case, I can see that that's very, very restricted, depending on the topic. So certain things that I talk about, if it's very, anti Google, for example, then I will notice that there's definitely a suppression. I don't know. It wasn't like that all the time. I don't think they were detecting it at the beginning, and then maybe because I was more direct about what Google was doing, and then they started to react.
Can I just play devil's advocate with you for a second? I mean, all right, fine, they track me. Okay, they capture information and they use it to advertise to me. What's the harm? What's the big deal? My life is more convenient. What would you say to that, Mr. Rob Braxman?
When you actually see what they actually do, and fortunately they publish this, so it's not a secret. You'd be shocked. So one of the biggest things that these companies do, and a specific example is Google. So Google runs a division. It's called Jigsaw. Have you ever heard of Jigsaw before?
I have.
No. Oh, I haven't.
So Jigsaw is intent on using the data from Google to manipulate the population. That's what it's for. Now, if you go to the website jigsaw.google.com, you can see the intent there. Oh, we're here to help humanity. We're here to improve to get rid of the hate and all that on the internet. But when you actually go to the specifics, there's a very specific agenda, and it's not very well balanced. It is not. In fact, it's not balanced at all. So originally, the very first uses of Jigsaw was when they said, let's identify the Muslims I believe it was in London. Let's identify the Muslims in London and then change their internet, change what they see on the internet, and hopefully use that to influence thought to basically to get rid of the uh, what do you call that? The extremists. That was the intent. And the original company that started this thing with the Muslims was as an Indian woman in the UK, uh, and they started a company called Moonshot CVE. So this is one of the videos. I've done this video several times now, and every time I put this video out, he gets hardly any views, hardly any views, and it's such a significant topic. And I've titled it Bombshell, and it's still people, it's still not reaching people, and it becomes obvious that it's being suppressed. So anyway, if you go to Moonshot CVE, to that website, you actually see what their intent is. So what they've done is to identify people. So every person on the internet is identified on there. It's very simple to identify somebody because you log into Google, you log into Apple. And when you're identified, they have a fixed identity that can actually be matched to your device. They can match to your computer use, they can match to your phone use, and they can even match to people around you. So once they have an identity, and this is the key part to this, once they have an identity, then they can track what the identity is thinking. And in the case of Jigsaw and Moonshot CVE, so they partnered together here, what they did was then say, okay, let's find out what people are thinking with respect to certain topics. So example of the topic that they identified was anti-vax. So they actually have a map, and this is really crazy when you see it. There's a map of every single person that's anti-vax in the world, in the United States.
Wow.
And they actually, so I just zoomed into one of their graphics where I actually looked at the map of Texas, and it showed in Texas a specific community, and all the little dots in there are people, obviously with specific locations, of people thinking that are anti-vax. And they have other categories: anti-Hillary, white supremacists, and so on. They have all these categories. And the funny thing is they've labeled this population as violent right-wing extremists.
Wow.
Now that kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
How do you I know many people who are anti-vax. I don't understand how you make the connection between somebody who's anti-vax and that's now classified as a violent right-wing extremist listed with a specific identity on Google. And I'm wondering if that is now sent to the three-letter agencies and say, hey, these are your domestic terrorists here. We've identified them.
Or the Office of Disinformation that now exists.
You wonder.
Well, it certainly helps too, to sell it to the public when they say, well, this is a matter of national security. Look at these people. They're extremists. We have to continue giving away our privacy so that we can monitor these people. But I'm thinking, it seems almost impossible to be off of the radar of this sort of thing. And I've even encountered, and I don't want to be a conspiracy, conspiracy theories, just wait a few minutes and it'll actually turn out to be true. But, it seems to me that even sometimes the phone will advertise things that I think about. And I think about what you just said a minute ago. There's artificial intelligence that is creating a profile about you, and perhaps it's so accurate that it even tells you what you're thinking. Is there anything like that you've encountered?
Yeah. No, it's beyond encountering. It's real.
It's real.
So
happened many times.
But there's a way out. There's a way out. Fortunately, today there's a way out. But you're right. So imagine if you're logged into your phone and your phone has your Google ID, which is a very specific identity. I mean, you can't hide that you have a Google ID on your phone. You can't hide that you have an Apple ID on your phone. So it doesn't matter what you do on the phone. Every website you visit, every app you click on, every piece of traffic that exits from your device, and they do this cross-device tracking because they do two-factor authentication using that same Google ID so they can match all devices, right? So they can't not know what you're doing. There was a point in time where they even were doing audio And you said, how do they do audio? Well, many of them will actually, I think this was banned by the FCC, so I don't know if anybody's still doing it. But one of the things they were doing was pinging ultrasound signals
Wow.
all around your environment. And then because your microphone can listen to ultrasound and you can't hear it, right? Kind of like a dog. So your phone is like a dog. It can hear signals. And because of the signals being read, and and let's say you're an advertiser or you have an advertising little thing on an app, and it's listening into the microphone can then say, oh, I heard this ping from some device near me. And that ping could be a signal. It could be a signal of location. It could be a signal of people in a group. It could be a signal of some group interaction. And I think they banned that, but that's the thing now that I'm saying is the environment is even revealing things about you. Let's say that you're in on Facebook and somebody takes a photo and everybody's facially recognized. They're drawing all the connections. There was a time at Facebook, for example, this is a very common example I often used because it's very interesting. So this woman walks into a bar, sits like a joke. Woman walks into a bar. So the woman walks into the bar, and this guy tries to hit on her, at the bar, and the woman didn't like this guy, so kind of ignored him, and then went home. And this guy was recommended as a friend.
Oh, wow.
in the Facebook recommendations.
Creepy.
And of course, when you get recommended, you got the name, you got all that. And on Facebook, if you have a name and you have an identity on there, you can find a lot of stuff, including where they live, including their email. This is something that's very easy to find. So there's a danger here. We don't even realize that this interconnectivity can be abused, and this is an example of that. But there's a way out. There's a way out.
We have about 2.5 minutes left before we have to say goodbye. What is the way out? If people are interested in figuring out how they could, sort of take this tracking out of their life, what would be the best way to start? You got about 2 minutes.
The best way is to actually use a device that does not have a Google ID. So let me see if I can pull one out of here.
Like the Wise
actually, this is a phone that I released. It's called a Brax 2 phone. And this phone does not have any Google on it. This is a classification of phones that I refer to as de-Googled phones. And they're running on Android open source project. And so they run Android, so they're pretty much like any Android. So there's no big difference. A lot of apps do work, but there's no Google anything on it. Not every app works, but 90% of the apps work. But one of the things that you will realize intuitively is that you never log into the phone. I've never logged into this phone. I put a SIM card in, I can use the phone, and I can run some apps. I can run Netflix, Spotify, Kindle, and things like that. And I don't have any Google or anything here whatsoever. And what happens is when you have a phone that doesn't have any kind of login, then you have knocked out a major chunk of the tracking, as I mentioned earlier. So that's one of the things you can do. So that is probably, I'm going to say 70% of the problem.
Wow.
If you cut the phone out, 70%.
That's a big chunk
that's
right
identity.
there. Now, I understand, because we're running out of time now. I understand you also offer like a VPN service as well.
That's right. So that's the second part.
But
you put a VPN on.
Where do they find information about that? We're out of time at this point, but where do they find information about your services?
Well, go to my YouTube channel because I talk about it there. And then you can find it on my website on Braxman.
All right, Brax.me is the website. Go to the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/BraxMe. Rob Braxman Tech, God bless you. God love you. Thank you for your time today and your insight into this crazy story.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. Praise be to God. Thank you for joining us today. We're very grateful to you. Do not forget to get in on that $300 gift certificate giveaway from Agard Watches. Go to our website for the details, grnonline.com/CDT. We'll see you in the next hour, or we'll see you back here tomorrow morning. God bless you. God love you, and have a great day.